Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, just wanted to share this article with you and talk a little bit about the US Treasury debt because one of the biggest questions that have been asked to me is who's going to buy the debt? Like, who's going to be buying all these US Treasuries of the United States government as the United States government continues to go on their spending spree and diving ever deeper into deficit spending and debt issuance? Now, who's going to buy that debt? The same people who basically have always been buying the debt, right? Look at the foreign holding of debt, of US Treasury debt. It's at a record high. It's never been higher. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about the US Treasuries being the dominant asset for doing world trade. Like when it comes to having a safe and liquid asset, there is nothing else on the planet that works as well as a US Treasury does. Now, granted, all the horribleness that you can possibly think of that would bring the dollar down, that would bring the United States debt issuance to a halt, the default possibilities, all the scary scenarios that you could ever possibly think of, yeah, those things exist. And I mean, it's like a real possibility that those things could happen, but they're not, right? I mean, every day, the U.S. Treasuries continue to function. They have not gone into default. They have not driven the high rates have not driven the government into a problem of debt issuance where nobody's going to buy it, right? People continue to use it, and people are going to continue to use it because there's nothing else to use. And that's important to understand. It's like once they have pushed it to the condition in which that we are experiencing now, there is no real other way of operating because there's nothing else available to operate with. And that's the whole reason why the US Treasuries continue to be the number one dominating asset for doing world trade. And you can see it by the foreign holdings of US Treasuries. As much as people look and see and say, hey, look at all the countries that are dumping US Treasuries. Look at them get out of the US Treasuries. They don't want to be holding this US government debt anymore. They do not take into consideration that those people are trying to get a hold of cash and that there is no faster, easier way to access cash than to liquidate your US Treasuries. This is essentially as good as cash can be without being cash. US Treasuries are liquidable at any given moment. Now, considering the situation that the world is going into with the idea that there is recessionary pressures or problems or I don't know, just whatever you want to call it, the crisis scenario is coming. This usually drives people into a safe haven. And since there is no other place to go other than possibly gold and maybe Bitcoin for a lesser extent, US Treasuries are the number one safe haven asset. And as far as the available of other safe haven assets, it's the most available, right? And so this is the one that ends up being at the top of everybody's list when it comes to crisis or scary moments or just anything where they're trying to find the safe haven, they move into US Treasuries. Now, if you take a look at the links that I left down in the description, you can see it from the Fred chart, right? From the Federal Reserve Educational Department or whatever, I forget what the Fred stands for. You can see that the continuous increase of US Treasury holdings has just gone off the charts. And although there is a small moment in time in which that you see there is a pullback in US Treasury holdings by foreign holdings, it is for the most part on an upward trajectory and most likely will continue that way, as there again is nothing else to provide the world with that safe and liquid asset. People ask about Bitcoin or ask about gold, and they wonder, it's just like, well, how come it is that they just don't use these two things? And most of the time, in the idea of using a Bitcoin or gold, you're going to end up hoarding all the gold or all the Bitcoin. And the most industrious people will have it, and everybody else will be deprived of having a functioning economy with a currency that is that of Bitcoin or gold because it would be hoarded away. This is the reason why the elastic money supply has been able to grow to the level that it has, is because of the ever increasing amounts of currency that is added to the system, allowing for this safe and liquid asset to grow to the level that it has. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's the reason why it's happening. So as the time continues on and we try to find another place to go as far as a safe and liquid asset, a safe haven commodity, a liquidable place that can do transactions, you're going to find there's really no other place to be because there's nothing else available. All right, let's go and talk about some of these things. I'll probably be out here until it gets dark, which is going to be in like maybe 15, 20 minutes or so. We'll see how long it goes. I just wanted to share this with you because so many people are talking about how there is no holdings of, or the foreign holdings of US Treasuries. Everybody's getting out of it, and that's simply just not the case. It's actually going the other way around. There's ever increasing amounts of foreign debt holding. All right, is there a way for us to buy treasuries with debt that's financially feasible? Is there a way for us to buy treasuries with debt that's financially feasible? Well, if you could take out a debt for less than what you are buying the treasury for, right? So if you can borrow money at 3% and buy a treasury that's yielding 5%, right, then you can make it feasible. But that's not probably going to be the situation, is that most likely you're not going to find that you can get a debt that's less than what the treasuries are. I mean, I imagine in some cases you probably could, because really there's moments in time in which that speculation within the treasury markets and not so much the yield is the driving force. And you could probably find where there is like obscurities and discrepancies from what it is that like would be out there available in the retail space for debt and what you would find within the treasury market. But then again, that would be, I think, a short-term speculation within the market. So like, so to speak, like if people were dumping treasuries all of a sudden for whatever reason, the treasuries were just getting dumped out, well, the price would fall and the yield would rise. Now, if that happened very quickly, that's not like exactly enough time to move into the entire financial market, although a lot of the financial market would react right away to something like that. There may be opportunity to acquire like a debt that would be not that did not reflect that treasury move, right? Anyway. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Anyone do tile and grout work on here? I've done it. I've done a lot of tile and grout work. A lot of it. Live again. Yeah, I just wanted to share the article with you. That's it. And then I'm going to go and check out. Because it's getting late. And I woke up at like, I don't even know, 4:30 this morning or something like that. All right, finishing the bathroom, and the grout is killing me. Any advice? Well, what's the problem? Like normally when you do the grout, like I mean, at least for me, I would use a float and I would just, basically push all the grout around into the grout lines. And I generally was doing floors, so I don't know if you're doing walls or floors, but when I was doing floors, I would actually like pack the grout. Like I would stand on, like, push the grout into the grout lines to make sure there wasn't like any air pockets or anything like that going on. But for the most part, you just have to fill the grout lines in and then, just go and clean it up with the sponge. It it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, it takes time, because there is a lot of cleaning of the grout, and you kind of have to try and stay away from the grout lines, which is a little difficult, especially if you have smaller tiles. But, I guess a little bit of practice. I don't know. It's not that hard. Sometimes getting the haze off is a real pain in the ass. You can get grout haze remover, let's see here. Keep talking about the foreign debt. Who owns it? Well, that's okay. So you got it. Like this. Okay. Okay. Let's understand this. So a U.S. Treasury, right? A bond, a U.S. bond, 10-year bond, has coupons, pays whatever. I can own it. You can own it. China can own it. Japan can own it. Right? Anybody can own it. In fact, everybody does own it. Like literally, like everybody owns it, right? So every bank that you can find has treasuries sitting on their balance sheet. Just like any balance sheet, assets and liabilities. Treasuries being one of the assets, right? When you buy a treasury, you are loaning the government money. So just like any debt that the bank is lending money to, that becomes the asset. So they lend money to you for a car, that loan that they have produced, your debt is their asset, right? Their liability is the money they gave you. Your asset is the money. Your liability, right? The liability that you have is the debt that went out there. So the bank sees it exactly opposite. So here I got all these bonds, right? And the Treasury sells these bonds to Japan, to China, to insurance companies, to retirement funds, to some Arab out there in the middle of, the desert, to whoever wants to buy these things. And everybody wants to buy them. Why? Because they're a safe and liquid asset, meaning that instantaneously I can turn it to cash. Boom, right there. Now I got cash in my hand. And if I want to do world trade, people generally would rather use these US Treasuries because cash is kind of burdensome. It costs fees to wire money around and deal with that, and having it in a bank account, where US Treasuries has a little bit of a yield that pays you, and you can use it just like you can cash. So US Treasuries ends up being what a lot of people use for doing world trade. And because of that, it becomes the safe and liquid asset, and there's nothing else that is being provided that can do that. So not only is cash the number one demanded asset because it relieves the debt, right? So if you have a debt that's due in dollars, a US Treasury isn't going to pay that debt off. Only cash will pay that debt off. You will need to sell your treasuries, get the cash to pay your debt off. So cash is the number one asset, but US Treasuries is just as good so long as you're just using it for trade, right? And you're not using it to pay off your debt. So that's where foreign holdings come in, and they're like, hey, let's use these treasuries because I can trade treasuries with anybody else around the world. But if I have like a Chinese bond, they'll be like, hey, you want a Chinese bond? No. You? No. You? No. Anybody want a Chinese? Nobody? Like I guess a handful of people want Chinese bond. But who wants U.S. Treasury? I do. Everybody. Everybody wants U.S. Treasuries, right? So boom, 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 boom. Everybody gets the U.S. Treasuries, and everybody wants to hold them. So they're the ones who are holding the debt. Like if the United States begins to default, it will default randomly. Like if they didn't pick and choose, like because ultimately it's a computer program now. So I guess they can just say, well, they can pick and choose whose accounts don't get paid. But ultimately they shouldn't. They're not really, like if it was a paper bond, there is no choosing which one is going to default. Like you won't be able to say, hey, I'm going to default on your particular bond. Like that bond either is going to pay or it's not. And it doesn't matter who owns it, right? Because it's not, the ownership is inconsequential to the bond. All right. That's, I don't know, that's it in a nutshell. Does that make sense? I don't know. What other question do you have about that? I think that was a good question. All right. Listen, Brent Johnson says there is no alternative to the dollar for quite some time now, and not in the foreseeable future. Dollar is king for now. I totally agree. That's one of Brent Johnson. I've met him a couple of times. Brent Johnson is so cool. He's a very cool dude, and his presentation about the dollar milkshake theory is top notch. You know why? This is why, because what Brent Johnson did. It wasn't at the last Rebel Capital. Did he speak at the last Rebel? I don't know if he spoke at the last Rebel Capitalist, but definitely at the one before. And what he did was something absolutely incredible. He took his own theory, right? And it's an hour-long presentation. He took his own theory and completely dismantled it. Dismantled his entire theory. Everything that he has ever brought up, he fought in arguments against it. And then went back over the exact same information again, and then told it in a better way, then absolutely just seals the deal on it. You can't, it's like after you follow his presentation, it's just like, man, there is no way you could debate him on this. Even, I don't know, I watched a while ago a Peter Schiff, Brent Johnson debate, and I thought that was really, really, really good. But I still I'm very much more in line with Brent Johnson and his theory on how it all worked. And to be honest, I haven't listened to him in quite some time because I've just been doing my own thing. But anyway, yeah, I'm digging Brent Johnson. Aren't treasuries the closest thing to a real tangible asset? Yeah, I kind of feel that way. I mean, it's not like it's all fiat, it's all contract, it's all promise to pay, so therefore it's all perception, right? But I mean, right? I mean, unless it's like a piece of gold in your hand, then it's all a promise to pay every single thing. So yeah. We're still the best house in a bag of in a bag neighborhood in a bad neighborhood. Yeah, Brent Johnson. Yeah, Brent Johnson milkshake theory. Really good stuff. You should check it out. All right, Simon, can you elaborate on why you always clarify and to a lesser extent Bitcoin and Jason Lowry pull his book Soft War, presumably since it could be a threat to national security? Um, so I'm not sure what soft like I'm not sure about the book that was pulled, like made him pull his book or whatever. Um, but Bitcoin can't I mean, I don't know if you're asking like why can't Bitcoin be a world reserve currency? Is that the question behind it? I mean, because like Bitcoin can never be a world reserve currency because it's limited in supply, right? And just like any commodity based or limited currency out there, what you're going to find is that the most industrious people will hoard all the money, depriving the rest of the people from the ability to do transactions, and they will fall into depression and misery until the money is redistributed, right? And that's going to be the case no matter what. It's Cantillon effect. The only thing that really limits or like basically obscures the Cantillon effect so it isn't happening, but it is happening. It's just an underlying economic force that you're not recognizing is the fiat currency and the elastic money supply that continues to pour in. But it's just like the Cantillon effect is sitting there waiting. It's just like, well, once the new money turns off, you will fall into pain and misery. And it will happen, guaranteed. Like, I mean, there's zero doubt in my mind that at some point that will take place. When I don't know. That part, I have no idea. People want to think it's a lot faster than it probably is. There was a time when I was digging into this information, and you got to think I've been doing this stuff for like 20 plus years now. I've been doing this hardcore digging through information and sifting through all kinds of stuff. And when I first started diving into research, I thought it was happening a hell of a lot faster than it was. And so to me, like I always think things are happening faster than they are, but I have to remember that this is an incredibly slow grind, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. And some things do switch in a moment, right? You have like those particular events that take place, but ultimately, like the way the currencies transition through the gold standard into the fiat standard, into the fiat currencies, the establishment of this world reserve currency, how it moves into a digital currency, how it moves into tokenization and stuff like that, because these things are coming, right? Like there's no doubt, that digital. I can't even say it. Digitizing and tokenization are definitely like on the move, right? And there's like little doubt in my mind that in 10 to 15 years you would find that all companies have like you'll see like PayPal having its own like stable coin kind of aspect for doing transactions. You will find where all corporations in their commodity or in their products that they do are going to be tokenized. So, you'll have to have everything is going to go into smart contract kind of style, and it will be in that form because that's the direction. Like you can just see it; it's progressing that way. There's nothing you can do to stop it. Like try to stop it. You can't. Like what are you going to do? Don't participate. Okay, like you're left behind. Everybody else is going to continue doing it while you're left behind. So it's like you can fight it, you can wish it or hope that it doesn't happen, but here it comes. All right. So we are up to 47 likes with 94 people watching, and we have April Cole, who has just I don't know if you've gotten a membership or re-upped the membership, but thank you so much for being a member. I see that just happen here. Go hit that like button. With 94 people watching right now and 47 likes, we can get it up to, let's get it up to 90 likes in the next 10 minutes here by 30 minutes into it, and we'll stick around. Otherwise, we'll call it a night. All right. Boom. All right. Multi-phase question. Oh, hey, April. Thank you. Let's see here. I don't know. I know I kind of flip through these things. I wouldn't call a promissory note from a country $34 trillion in debt as a tangible asset. It's not like, hey, like, I don't like it. Like, it's not something I'd like. When people say like, it's like this is a wonderful thing and it's the only thing there and yeah, it's awesome and it's the king dollar or something like that. That's not me. I'm not saying it's awesome. I'm just saying it's the only thing that's out there and there's nothing else available. And when it comes to debt issuance around the world, if the dollar strengthens, it's going to destroy the world. It is so much dollar denominated debt that exists inside of this planet, and people don't even realize. See, like when I say these US treasuries are doing transactions around the world, it's not just US treasuries that are doing that. You know what else does it? People who have written debts in dollars. They're like, hey, buddy, I'm not American. I don't have, well, somebody's going to take this and make a short out of it. But anyway, I'm not American. I don't have like any ties to the government. I'm not a banker. I'm not anything, nothing. I have nothing to do with the United States. Here, I owe you $100 in US, right? US currency, blah, 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 for whatever reason. And I'm not anything to do with the United States, and I hand this contract over to somebody else who doesn't have anything to do with the United States. Boom, right? They have the contract, right, that I owe them, right? It's due in dollars. They've given me $100, right, because it's a contract that's due for $100. Again, we don't have anything to do with the United States except for the contract that has been issued and the fact that it was $100 that was creating the contract of it. Now this contract starts getting used to do transactions much like the US Treasuries do. So it's added to the pool of treasuries, right, to do transactions with. Not everybody's going to trust it the same as US Treasuries, but a bunch of people will, and it can do transactions somewhat similar to that does, right? And again, it's not to the same level because it's trust on who it is that has issued the IOU. The United States government has issued the IOU for the US Treasuries. Somebody out there could have issued a debt for US dollars, right? Now you can trust them to pay it, and if you do, and everybody else does, well, it might be able to be used for doing transactions. And there is a ton of dollar-denominated debt that is serving that purpose right now. So if you can imagine if that stuff disappeared, right, how much of the world's transactions would be depleted or be lost of capability due to the failure of not having the transactionable contract to do it with, and left only to the U.S. Treasuries. That would shrink the amount of transactions that are available for the world to do. This would be depressionary forces, is what I'm saying, right? Recessionary forces would be taking place. The more that people try to get out of the dollar and destroy the debt. So I paid that debt off. Get that out of here. No more existence. Well, you can't use it for doing transactions anymore. You're just relying on these US treasuries. Well, US government, it starts paying off its debt. Now you don't have any money, right? You don't have any transaction. People are going, man, the other day I was doing 100 transactions. Now I'm only doing 5. Why? Because you're going into recessionary forces due to the fact that due to the fact that you are losing the available asset to do the transactions with. Does that all make sense? I don't know if this is like, I'm trying to keep it simple without going too complicated on them, but I think if you guys get that part, right? All right. The dollar might not die for a long while. That doesn't mean it can't get really sick in a hurry. No, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right about that, right? And I would say that when you have houses that should be selling, in your mind, like when you're growing up, that would typically be like $150,000 house or $100,000 house, and it's selling for $500,000, right? That's like the dollar stick. How long can it be sick? How long can an alcoholic be an alcoholic? Huh? Long time. Real long time. Benny, nice to see you here, man. Multi-phase question. Oh yeah. No, I know why you explained it thoroughly in the past. I just wasn't to know why you say gold and Bitcoin. Gold is greater than Bitcoin. I just want to know why you say gold is greater than Bitcoin. Okay, that's a good question. No, and it's legitimate too, right? Why is gold better than Bitcoin? Now, let's think about like the similarities, the good and bad points about the two, because this is really the best way to think about it. Now, what are the similarities between these two, right? They're both limited in availability, right? There's only so much gold on the planet. There's only so much that's been mined. There's only so many Bitcoin out there. So they're both limited in that sense. They're somewhat similar, right? A lot of times you can look at Bitcoin as being like the digital gold. Gold is a little bit more unique in a sense that it's actually in your hand, right? So this is where a lot of people are like, "Hey man, I got something in my hand, you got nothing but a digital nothingness," right? Well, that's not really true, right? Because what this Bitcoin can do is do a transaction, which is something that gold can do, but gold, you kind of have to be there to do it. Like I can like hand it to you, but if you're not right here, then I have to trust, right? Now all of a sudden there's a little issue here because I don't want to trust anybody. I just want to be able to give it to you and not have anybody else involved with this. So either we have to go and meet somewhere or we have to rely on a third party. And this is like, again, trust issues that's begin to happen from it. So when it comes to doing transactions, well, Bitcoin totally fits the bill, right? I mean, as long as you have internet access, you're going to be able to transact with anybody in the world, and there's nothing you can do to stop it once the transaction is started. That is pretty cool, right? Now, is it anonymous? No, not really, right? Now, is gold anonymous? Yeah, it can be. But again, you're limited, right? So, yeah, okay. So we got the good and bad points about it, and they both seem fair, right? In my opinion, right? I think that they both kind of serve the purpose of it. They can both do essentially the same thing. You can figure out the issues that, about I described with gold, and you can kind of deal with the issues that go with Bitcoin. So really, what does it come down to? Is there one thing that really says this one is better than that one? What could it possibly be? Well, let's take, for example, you remove gold. Well, no, let's remove Bitcoin from the system, and all we have is gold. Nothing changes about gold. Not a single thing, right? Gold still exists, still does everything it's ever done. Nothing about its history changes. Nothing about its future will change other than the parallel we're on, right? It's like an existence. It's like, an element, neither created nor destroyed. Like you can bust it into tiny little pieces, but you're never going to really destroy it. It'll always be here. Bitcoin, on the other hand, let's take that for example, right? See, like with gold, you remove Bitcoin, gold exists. Take Bitcoin, all right? And you remove gold from the system, and Bitcoin disappears too. Right? You can't have Bitcoin unless you have gold, because gold is a vital commodity that is part of everyday life as far as communications and cell phone communications and satellite communications and everything that we do on the internet and all the electronics and all the other stuff really comes down to having a little tiny piece of gold component to it. More silver, but anyway. But you get the point of it, right? Gold will continue to exist. Bitcoin cannot without gold and silver. So gold and silver win. That's it. That's all there is to it, right? Now, give it your good and bad points and give it the meaning that you want. It doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it's not my opinion anyway. It's just like, what is the world going to use? Well, it's a limited fiat currency, and, there's only so much available supply out there. So, all right. You guys got about 30 seconds to go hit that like button, get it up to about 90, and we'll continue on with the live stream. Otherwise, we'll just call it at a half an hour. So go hit the like button right now with 113 people watching. I'll continue to answer these questions and break it all down for you. All right, the Grand Canyon. All right, yeah, I love Big Weir's theory. The chocolate or the Grand Canyon with the mass gold in there. Okay, my friend was urging me to invest in Treasury T-bills, but after the news lately, I'm hesitant. Well, I mean, you decide for yourself, man. You got to dig in and, figure it out. I would say, like, I own a little bit of treasuries. I own some gold. I own some silver. I own Bitcoin. I own stocks. I own real estate or buying real estate. Right, all these little pieces. So you can go and get a Fed US Treasury direct account, right? And it's easy. You just set it up. It's just like an account like any others, and then you just buy a little bit of treasuries, right? No big deal. It's not like you have to go and dump every dime you have into it. You can go literally buy like $100 worth, and then just get a little bit of into it, and then you'll then you won't be so hesitant about it. I mean, don't take that as financial advice. I mean, don't invest in the U.S. government if you don't want to support their dastardly deeds. You know, I mean, Simon, do you have a month over month report on how much USD debt is being issued? I don't. I mean, I know that it's probably going to grow and grow dramatically into the future as the demand for that safe and liquid asset will grow along with everybody else's want and desire to grow. See, somebody says, why can't you just be stable? And it was just like, do you want to be stable? I mean, are you satisfied with the level that you're at? No matter how hard you work, you're never going to get any more than what you're at. I mean, that doesn't sound right. You want to be able to work and acquire and be able to acquire more. And that's not stable. That's like growing, right? Stable means you don't grow. Stable means you get this and that's it and nothing else, right? And that would be stable, but nothing is stable. That's why it doesn't make sense to try and have a stable economy, because there is no such thing as stable, right? It's always grow or diminish, right? It's just it can only go one of two directions. Because no matter what, like the moment that you have acquired to a certain level, there's people who are going to want to acquire more, and there's you who's not going to be satisfied with being at the level you're at no matter how hard you work. Right? So you're going to want more. And so, again, it's just like you have to deal with the cycles and deal with the issues as they come. But, and just know that they're always changing, evolving, and never going to be the same. All right, we're getting close here, guys. We're at 84. I think we can give it another 5-10 minutes here. We'll go on. 118 people watching. The more you hit that like button, what happens is the YouTube algorithm sees it. They see more of the comments. They see people joining in. Then the video gets spread around more, and people get to, it will get more people joining in. We'll get the live stream to last longer. Where's that super chat at? Oh, gosh, you guys are commenting. Here we go. Wayne, thank you so much. We got Wayne Smith with the $5. I really enjoyed the morning live you did the other day. Coffee with UE was a good way to start the day. The timing was perfect too. Just saying. Hey, thank you, Wayne. I really appreciate it. And that was a lot of fun. I just kind of got up and it was like the family was sleeping and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out and I'm just gonna bust out this live stream. And it was cool. It was like sitting around drinking coffee, hanging out, and getting ready to go to work. It was a good time. I did have a lot of fun with that too. All right. The dollar is the only reliable debt currency. It really is, April. Corey. Hey, nice. All right. It's good to see you, bud. It says rice. Rice. All right. I can make gold into teeth. Cool. All right. The biggest problem with fiat currency, it's legal tender laws. Yeah. Hit the like button. Yes, please do. Can't have Bitcoin teeth. No, you really can't. Both have miners. Yeah, deja vu, they really do. During the gold rush, many people got rich by selling picks and shovels. Jimmy, yeah, you're right. That was, selling the equipment to go mining with, right? That's where a lot of people made it. All right. Shouldn't the record always be breaking due to increasing money supply? Absolutely, Jay. I agree. And this is one of the problems that, I think a lot of times when you hear the stories out there of, how, like, I've been following the economy for a long time, and anybody who's really followed the economy for a long time, they've heard like the same stories before. It's just like, oh, did you hear about the debt ceiling? And it was like, oh yeah, that thing again. Right? And political nightmares. All right. And here we go. Have you ever, like, what else? I mean, all these things come up, right? And so when I think about like the times that there is a moment in which that people are getting out of the treasuries, right? Everything ebbs and flows, right? It is no doubt in my mind that at some point people are going to feel overloaded in certain parts of their portfolio, and US Treasuries may be it. It may be a good time to sell because they're getting the dollars they want for it. Maybe they want to readjust their portfolio into a different position within the US Treasury, selling the shorter term and picking up the longer term later. Maybe it's all kinds of stuff that's out there who's causing the reasons that there is that moment in dropping in US Treasury holdings by foreigners or even, anybody out there. But again, look at the overall trajectory of what the holdings of US Treasuries is doing. It's ever increasing. Like to the point that it will be like, can you imagine that if it continues to flood and everybody is using it to do transactions, there's nothing else that can compete to that level. And that's like kind of like almost like the secret to the game is that if you can keep pushing it out there and keep issuing it and keep getting it out there and using it, getting people to use it and hold it and put it in their portfolios and make transactions with it and do all that other stuff, pretty soon it's completely surrounded the entire globe. And people say, hey, we want to get into something else. I was like, okay, go ahead, do something else. Do what the dollars do what the United States is doing. Go ahead and issue out and go into as much deficit and debt spending as the United States government has done in order to provide the world with that treasury, with that safe and liquid asset. Get the world to trust you to do it. How do you do that? That's not possible. It's certainly not going to happen from the BRICS nations, right? Yeah. And so understanding it at that level, it just makes it easy. It's just like, okay, there are certain things that would just have to happen in order for it to lose that world reserve currency status. Number one thing that would have to happen is it would have to be a second place. Somebody who could stand up and say, hey, we can fill the role. Right? Now, I'm not trying to say that there's not going to be a worldwide, complete devastating collapse of the dollar and the United States debt Ponzi scheme. I'm not trying to say that that won't happen. It could very well happen. But if it doesn't happen, the only way that it's going to fail is to have a second place come up and say, hey, we're going to knock you off your high horse. Gresham's law, all the others, it's not there. Right? It's not there. It's not there. So I don't stress it. I just don't like everybody says, it's done, it's cooked, it's over, it's failed. And I'm like, no, it's not. They're like, inflation destroying the dollar, your purchasing power. Yeah, totally to the Fed's benefit getting their monetary policy back. Right? All this stuff, it's not a surprise to me. It doesn't have me worried or fearful of the future or anything else. Yeah, does it suck? Sure. Right? Is it going to get worse? Yep. That wedge between the rich and the poor is going to grow worse. The ability to get a house is going to get harder. All the things that are nightmares and hard to handle in the emotions and thinking that, man, am I ever going to have a chance? Yeah, those things exist and it's going to get worse. All right. But knowing and understanding it, especially at a younger age, if you're at a younger age, you have the best shot in the world at getting on the other side of the wedge. See, that's what's great about being like 18 years old, figuring this stuff out. Because if you start figuring it out and saving and putting it in compounding interest of towards anything, I don't care what it is, man, figure it out. Right? But if you can keep rolling that investment and interest collection over into more investment and more interest collecting, right? Over time, you will do so well. You can be really pretty dumb your entire life so long as you stick to that plan. By the end of it, you're going to do pretty well. Now, if there is a complete collapse of the dollar, okay, all bets be off, right? Better have some gold and silver in your plan, pick up some guns and ammo, have Bitcoin, learn to can food, I don't know, do all the survival stuff, right? But the dollar isn't failing today, and it didn't fail yesterday, and it's probably not going to fail tomorrow. So you can plan for it for tomorrow, right? I mean, I don't think that there's going to be zombie apocalypse tomorrow, right? So we can prepare for the zombie apocalypse, which probably isn't going to happen tomorrow, but we can spend our time and effort and energy and money on that. Or we can spend our time and money and effort and energy on compounding interest, because if we're 18 years old, we have the greatest gift that was ever given into an investor, and that is time. Something that I just don't have. You're so fortunate. Thank God that you have time on your hand. And don't waste it. Every day, do that calculator. Take an interest Take an interest calculator, like an interest-bearing calculator, compounding interest one, right? Punch in there for 50 years or whatever. If you're 18 years old, 50 years is probably good. 68, you're not going to want to work after that. You go for 50 years, you dump $50 a month into it, you got it at 8%, 10% interest. Look how much money you'll have at the end of it. Now, here's something. You're 18 years old, you do it for 50 years. Take it down to 49. Look how much money you lose. Every minute you wait to do this is costing you thousands of dollars. Don't wait. Right? At the end of it, it could literally be costing you thousands of dollars, especially considering that if there's inflationary scenarios that come into the future, you will be putting more money towards that than you would than this the $50 a month. Right? I look back on my life and I think, man, if there was any advice that I would give myself, it would be like, dude, do not be a fool and do a compounding interest investment early. If that was the only advice I gave myself, that would be it. Larry Bird, $4.99. Thank you so much. You're all I listen to, Yui. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it, man. I mean, I do put out a lot of content, and I mean, I know a lot of you are faithful listeners, and you're here with me constantly, and I put out like 45 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hour long live streams. On top of it all, that's a lot of time to be investing with me and my thoughts and ideas that I'm putting out there. I appreciate it. I know your time is valuable. All right, I know it is, and by you guys spending that time with me, it means a lot to me, and I don't want to waste it for you. So I want to bring you the good content. I want to bring you a good theory and a good idea, and I want to be entertaining while I'm doing it as well. Ultimately, I think you should also be looking at other people's stuff, right? Because they're going to have good information as well. They're going to have stuff that I haven't brought up. They're going to have theories and ideas that you're going to need in order for you to be able to conduct yourself throughout your life, right? And so I appreciate everybody who has listened to me, and I'm not trying to say, hey, turn away from my videos right now and go listen to somebody else. What I'm saying is that there's information out there that I simply don't have, and there's things that I know I don't know. All right. And a lot of people try to argue with me on that, especially when it comes to the political arena of it, which I think is actually kind of comical. But anyway, listen to everybody. Everybody has a nugget of information out there. Right? Where are we at? 109. We're at 42 minutes into this live stream. I love it. I love it when we have just about as many people hitting that thumbs up as we have watching. It really goes to show you guys are enjoying the video. Times are getting tougher. Everybody underestimates working when you get old. I would rather party in the middle and have a hobby that pays when I'm 80. Yeah, April, I totally agree in that sense, but here's the thing, like, if you don't chase excellence from an early age, learning how to chase excellence becomes very difficult when you're older. And so learning how to do it at a younger age means that you're going to screw a lot of stuff up when you're 20, and that's okay because when you're 20, everybody expects you to screw up when you're 20. Like nobody expects anything out of you. That's what's awesome about being 20 is you get to try all kinds of shit, and if you screw it up, it doesn't matter because nobody really expected that much out of you to begin with. And if you screwed it up, they're like, so what? He's 20, he's young, he's figuring it out, right? And so or she, whoever, right? And that's what's awesome about being in your 20s and you're trying that stuff. By the time you get to 30s, you got to kind of really figure it out. Like you got to really be kind of figuring out a game. You got to have a skill. You kind of have to have a profession that you're moving towards and understanding and getting pretty good at because by that point, by the time you get through the 30s, like when you're finally through that third, like even halfway or into your 30s, looks like by the time you get in there, if you're really understanding and have acquired a skill and a profession, people are looking to you. They're like, man, this guy has got his shit together. He knows what he's doing. He has like, the skills and the assets and the capabilities and the networks and all the other stuff. When you move into 40, it's full on, right? This is it. Now you've got the wisdom, you got the experience, you got all the stuff, right? And you should be like full on with business and everything and acquiring and doing all the things and just being awesome at life. Screwing that up, like screwing that path up in an earlier part, like you're 40 years old and you're like, oh man, what did I do? Like, okay, I guess I gotta quit drinking now. All right, let's figure that out. I'm broken in debt. That sucks. Right? Like it's a little late. And luckily for me that I was able to, at least show up for work every day, right? That was for me, drinking my pretty much from my 20s into my up to 40. I showed up every day for work. Like every day. Like I didn't miss work. I don't miss work. Like I show up every single day for work. People even like at work, they're like, "Man, how do you do that? You show up every single day for work." And I'm like, "Yep, I never call in. Never ever. The only time I ever called in is when I got COVID, right? And I was like, I was kind of forced to at that point. But other than that, I've never called in sick. Like I show up for work and I tell the guys, "Hey man, I don't know if I can handle it." I mean, like I've worked half days because I was sick and like, throwing up at work, but I will most likely show up. All right? I will like I mean, at least that's what I feel. I mean, I'm 25 years. I don't know if I've called it sick once, It's so, I mean, I have, but it's just like such a rare occasion, I just show up. I mean, I show up. That's it. I mean, I may not perform, I may not do all the other stuff. I'm not saying I'm awesome at all that other stuff, but I will be there. I mean, I'm going to be there. Yeah. All right, let's go check it out. $4.99. Where do you think? Oh, I'm sorry. What do you? God, where are my glasses? All right, what do you think about Say's law, where general glut, widespread access of supply over demand can't occur? I, I I don't know. I would have to look more into that because I have like looked at Say's laws, but I haven't like actually like internalized it or deep dived into it. But I don't know. Like again, like I don't think I could give a real good response to that question without actually going and doing a little bit more research and to better understand what it is that the theory was trying to convey within it, because I don't want to get it wrong in what I am thinking, because like my immediate response, I'm like, wait a minute, I might be like thinking that wrong. So let's talk about that in like maybe in another video or something, just so I can get a little bit better understanding and kind of think about it before I respond to it. Uh, Grammar Nazi boomer in chat. Well, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I'm terrible at speaking. Like I use slang words. I can't think of things like to speak properly. Even now that I try to even think about it, I start messing it all up. I don't know if you really need to be able to like speak properly or even spell properly in order to express what it is that you are feeling and understanding and thinking, right? However, in order to like really gain like, somebody's attention, you really have to do it well. You really have to spell, you have to articulate well, you have to do all the things well, all right? And so being able to present things in that fashion, is probably something that I picked up from doing bingo, right? So, as I'm calling bingo all night, I'm doing this presentation, I have to be very clear and very thorough and through all the stuff that I'm doing. And so by doing that, I guess like, I can be able to like bring some of that through into like some of these videos or whatever. But I don't like I don't talk right. I don't speak the English language properly. All right. Where are we at? 48 minutes into it. Okay, we'll go to an hour. I don't know. Well, we got 115 likes. I don't know if you can get it up to 130. Say if you get it up to 130, we'll stick it out for after the hour, but otherwise we'll call it an hour. All right. You got to get paid, plain and simple. Showing up is 90% of the battle. It really is. Say's law would, here we go. Say's law would have made the tulip bulb bubble an impossible. No, that's why more supply than demand and crushed prices. Well, yeah, see, I want to think about that for a minute. I want to think about it because, like, really, just the idea of like a Beanie Baby bubble, right? Tulip bubble, baseball cards, whatever, right? You can print up as many baseball cards as you want, but yet, there's rare ones out there after a certain year. That's it. There's only so many. But at the time, right, that they're being purchased, or at the time, they could print up as many as they wanted. There's an unlimited supply that could happen from it. But because they are limited in supply after that particular run, then they go up in price. Now, tulips, on the other hand, well, now, it's not like a certain year is better, it's a particular color. So you got the rarity of the color, you know, and that gives it the value outside of like, you know, for the rarity of it, like the date, like the year that the card was printed would give it a rarity because there's only going to be that one year that they were made. So in those sense, like, you know, you have a limited amount of supply, right? You know, because you can create as many of these particular tulips as you wanted, but it's because of the rarity of the color of it that actually really was what forced the price of it up. It was the stupidity of like people thinking that they could invest in this and then flip it into another and flip it into higher, you know, sell it to the greater fool. There was that nonsense that went on with it, the tulip mania part of it, but ultimately it wasn't like it was unlimited supply. There was the rarity of the color, much like the rarity of the year of the card. During the manufacturing of the card, it's an unlimited supply that they could produce, but that's not what gave it the value, right? The value was coming from the rarity of it, much like the color, right? So thinking about it in that sense, right? Because we look at it, it's like, well, there's billions and billions and billions of baseball cards and billions of tulip bulbs. So to us, right, it doesn't make sense. But when you get down to the rarity of it, it does. So we can't really look at it like that, right? Um, you know, I think like if you're going to think about a supply demand issue, I think like the better one to go look at is like toilet paper, right? It's something that everybody needs. It's not very expensive, right? It should be in plentiful supply all the time. It will go up in short supply in a hurry because when people are scared about it, they will go out and grab it right now because there is a massive demand for it. Everybody wants it, right? See, this is a better indicator of supply demand issues is by looking at toilet paper. You can find where supply shortages can come in just off of perception. I mean, we've covered that in this channel before, is that during the 70s, was it like the early 70s? I forget what year it was. Johnny Carson made a joke about a toilet paper shortage, and it sparked off a massive panic buying that had taken place within the toilet paper industry, and people went out there and bought up massive amounts of toilet paper and started hoarding it. Created a toilet paper shortage literally for a year. Toilet paper could not sit on the shelves. They were like limiting people on how much they could buy. A roll of toilet paper was selling for $10. People were stashing it in behind the couch and in closets and everywhere else they could get it. And everybody was convinced that there was going to be toilet paper shortages going into the future because there was no toilet paper on the shelf to be had. And they kept saying, there is no toilet paper shortage. Stop buying it all. Right? Stop going out there and buying it and hoarding it. You don't need a 500 rolls sitting in your house. Right? Because that's where it was at. And then after the whole idea that there was not going to be a shortage, and it slowly came back because people were finally realizing that they didn't have to hoard it anymore, right? All the supply came right back, and there was never a shortage to begin with. It was all perception. It was all made up in their head. Check it out. It was the toilet paper shortage of the 70s or something like that. Literally sparked off from a Johnny Carson joke. Weird, right? I mean, it didn't come from that. It came from a Wisconsin senator, governor, commissioner. I don't know what he was doing. Anyway, there's some like political official out of Wisconsin who was trying to like put the fear into the people and talking about the shortage of the pulp industry and how it was going to create a problem with the toilet paper industry if they didn't have their, you know, their forest industry or their pulp industry ramping up or something like that. I can't remember the exact story behind it, but Johnny Carson thought it was funny and he ran with the idea that there was going to be this toilet paper shortage and made a joke about it, and that was it. It was on. Right? So literally there is evidence of this taking place in the past year, right here in the United States. And when you push this propaganda out there to through the media, like not through just toilet paper, which it totally happened again, right? And it's funny that I brought that, like I made that video about the toilet paper shortage way before the pandemic, like years before, you know. And so it was cool that I had that video already out explaining how panic buying works. And so when you have a bunch of people out there watching the news going, oh my God, there's going to be no tuna fish on the shelf. I got to go out there and get all the tuna fish, right? So they load up on it. Well, it doesn't take very many people with that same brilliant idea to go out there and create the shortages within the industry. And then if you tell truckers, you don't get to work, don't go to work, don't, you can't, no railing, no, nothing, don't transport, right? And therefore nothing comes back on the shelf and people go like, oh no, and they pull their hair out, right? Anyway, Moving on. 126 likes, man. You're almost there. All right. You got 5 minutes to get it to 130. You're 4 likes away. I know what you guys are doing. What you do is you go from your phone to the computer to all, and you start logging in on all your different email accounts or all your Gmails, and then you hit the like button. All right. Straight yapping. Yeah, that's kind of me, right? When they realized how many special. All right. Let's cruise down here. Let's take a look at the bottom. All right. I'm putting in a bid when I remodel my bathroom. A bid it? A bid it? uh, hit the like button. Yeah, let's on the side. Okay, I need TP for my bunghole. Good old Beavis and Butthead. I'm happy I'm a Linux user. Right on, Cody. My brother met the developer of that. What's that guy's name? I can't remember. But my brother was on a dive trip up in the Puget Sound area, I think. Anyway, that dude was on the dive trip with them. So yeah, he got the dive with that guy. Go. Uh, do you use Linux UE? No, but there was a time I did. I did use it once. I had a buddy who was doing all my computer tech stuff, and he had hooked me up with Linux. But no, I don't. To be honest, I just use my Samsung phone for everything. I don't I don't do much technology stuff. Like, I mean, my old laptop, I use that to download PDF files so I can read it on a screen. That's so I don't have to print it out. But that's the only reason why I have that old ThinkPad. It was actually given to me by a user, so I really appreciate, or a user by a viewer. It was used, so I really appreciate it. It was cool. It was to lower tariffs on the Canadian trees for toilet paper mills. All right, I'm putting. Oh, we already did that one. Simon, you're a real father figure to me. Appreciate you. Well, right on, Trey. I mean, I hope you guys. You know, the thing is, I never really started this channel or anticipated that anybody would ever take any kind of life lessons from me because I was just like, what the hell do I have to teach about life lessons, right? I mean, I was kind of like not figuring things out for the longest time, but I really appreciate it when people are like, thank you for all the things you're doing and thank you for like all these other stories and talking about your life and the situations and the alcohol and everything else that it goes on. And to me it was just like I wasn't I mean, I guess it was for me, it was just like kind of almost just coming clean with this. It's like, facing it, owning it. Like, hey, it happened, right? I mean, what am I going to do? I can't hide from it. I'm not going to hide from you guys about what it is that I've done. If I do that, you'll figure it out and you'll be like, who the hell is this guy, right? So, I mean, I just try to bring myself to the table as who I am and just pour it out for you guys. And getting a response back like I have, it's incredible. Like, it's so touching. And I never really thought that I would that would happen, especially, some of the times when I had people come and say, hey man, I haven't drank for 3 months because I've been watching your videos and you're talking about, your experience. I quit because of that, or I've given it up, or I'm going to do it now, because whatever. It's just like you inspired me to at least give it a shot. And that right there is just like, it blows me away. I mean, I cannot tell you. I mean, I know I brought it up a bunch of times, but it really is like, that's something that really is impactful in my whole being. Uh, right on, you guys got it up to the 137, that's for sure. So, all right. My hands are bloody from work. My second trade is what is that? And I just hung out my shingle again. Jeez, all right. I own a detailing business in New Orleans. I wish I stayed daytime that long. Oh, I wish it stayed. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's getting dark now. What time is it? It's 9:30. Yeah, I told you it would stay dark late till almost 10 o'clock. Let's see. It's a kick-ass channel. Thank you, MLB. All right. Authentic. Yeah. Yeah, more live streams. Yeah, right on, Cody. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Like I said, I don't want to waste all your times here, because I love coming out here and I love doing this. Like the family, they're tired, they're going to sleep, they're crashing out, they're watching movies. I'm like, I'm gonna go live stream. I'm gonna go hang out with the guys. You know. All right. Do you think the housing crisis is more of a maintenance? What is it? Maintenance retrofit issue to try and get new homes built to keep inflation down. I don't. Do you think that more of a maintenance retrofit issue to try and get new homes built to keep inflation down? I don't. I don't. I don't believe that there's really anything that the government can do to change the situation. Like you can't change the motion that we're traveling down. There was a time when a good job could buy the house and raise the family and all that stuff, but we're traveling down this road that is going to eventually lead to a point in which that you have two classes, a huge separation between the two. You might have a few people who are trickling in between there, but there was a time in which, like in the beginning, the wedge was really small, right? And to be middle class didn't take much because there was a small space between, like, there was people who were way up there rich, but really the wedge was fairly small. And like the middle class was quite substantial because, this is because of that small, tight wedge. We were a rising people. We were industrious. We were figuring things out. We were producing wonderful products. We had immigration from all over the world that brought the best ideas from all the different parts of the world to a concentrated place here in the United States. And we were pumping out good ideas and products and just making amazing things for the rest of the world to buy. Now, think about that. If you had a job in which that you were producing all these wonderful things that everybody in your city was coming to buy from you, how much money would you make? You'd be making a lot of money, right? Because you're producing all this stuff and you're selling it to all your neighbors and all the people in the city. So as you're getting all this money, what are you going to do with it? Well, you're probably going to enjoy some of that money, right? And so this is really where the United States was enjoying that whole, like, a good job, providing enough for the household, the family, the kids, the retirement, all that stuff. That was because we were selling all these wonderful products out there. But we've moved on, right? We've moved on to another situation now where that's not the case. And it's never going to be a case. It's never going to be like that. If you want that sort of thing in your life, you have to find a location in the globe that is doing that, right? Because we're not doing that anymore. We're doing something different. And now what we're doing is we're now maintaining a luxurious life. So, and again, if you kind of take it back down to the guy in the city, he has raised his elevation in his life. And now what has ended up happening is that he is using debt issuance, right, instead of the production of good items to sell out there. Right? This is where we're at. We're in debt production. Now, if we can move back down into actual production of stuff, well, maybe we can like sustain our way of life. The only problem is that we live a luxurious life. We would have to go down to a competitive life against those around the world who are building those type of products, and that ain't going to happen because nobody wants to reduce their standard of living. They all want to maintain it. So again, here we are stuck at the luxurious life. The problem with this is that if we're going to maintain this luxurious life, we have to have ever increasing amounts of debt issuance, meaning that we have to spend that credit card, or, in the sense of the United States, US Treasuries, and that new money pours in. Well, if the new money pours in, this is what separates the rich from the poor. So if you have new money pouring in and you have the separation from between the rich and the poor, the people down at the bottom who are like, hey man, I would like to live that middle class life, right? Where I have the house and the cars and the vacation and stuff like that. Well, you have to earn a shit pot of money in order to be there, right? Because it's not accessible to you anymore like it once was when we were producing awesome products. See, we've elevated our standard of living. We're way up here. And so now how do you get there? Like how do you, like, okay, well, I mean, there was a time when I just could have had a regular job and would have been able to provide for a house. Now, what do I have to do? Well, now you have to figure out how to double up your income or even triple up your income, right? Because, you got to come up with a crap load of money, even money beyond the 20% down, because you got to reduce the principal payment in order to achieve the payment order to achieve a payment level that is in relation to that of your income, right? So your debt to income or debt to payment issue. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to get at. Anyhow, so again, like, is there a way that they can create a situation in which that they can provide more houses to bring inflation down? I don't think that's the case. Like, that's not like, I mean, we can dance around and try to figure out and maybe come up with some kind of weird policy concept that they could come up with, but that's not like the general path that we're headed down. We're headed down to separation between the rich and the poor, and ever increasing amounts of that. And if there's going to be new money pouring in, this is the problem that we're going to have to face, that is going to get worse going into the future. Like, there's no stopping that. So if you think about it, like, in the sense that if we have a total collapse of the dollar system or something, well, that might be the opportunity in which that the average person with an average job might be able to pick up a house again. But the only problem is you're probably not going to be wanting to live in the United States, as we're going to be in massive depression and chaos and misery and horribleness. So it's not like it's going to be an awesome time, but you might be in a house. I mean, it's a good chance. Just saying. Because I mean, people will be building houses like mad. Like, there won't be nearly, like, if you don't have government, then you don't have regulations. People will be like, screw you, I'm building a house and stop me. In fact, stop all of us who are doing it all at once, right? If you don't have any government, if you don't have anything going on because you've had a complete collapse, then people are going to be living in little huts and stuff. And they're like, yeah, there's your house. Like, everybody will have a house, but you'll be broke as hell. It won't be a fancy house. It won't be a nice house. Like, if you want all the services, you want electricity and garbage and water, and, you want the police service, and you want, like, clean up the streets and all the other. Well, you have to have a functioning dollar system. You got to have a functioning currency, like, system. That doesn't happen in a sense that is providing the ability, like, those two don't go together, right? If you want all that stuff, then you're going to have the situation in which that like, there was the opportunity, you had the opportunity to have that, like, everybody had the option to have the standard of living. That's past. We don't get that anymore. It's moved on, right? All right, what time is it? Man, I really babbled there. Oh, where are we at here? Does this help? Maybe a little bit. All right. I sleep outside on my family farm. Oh, that's cool. I mean, I probably would. If the United States falls, I will move to Nigeria. I got a letter today that I have a rich uncle there. Really? Man, I just found out I had a rich uncle there too. Tons of unpermitted houses in Puna District on the Big Island, Hawaii. Yeah, there is. Where I live. Hell, I have shipping container palace, one beautiful acre farm. Yeah, my mom had an unpermitted house on where was it? Ocean View? Ocean View? Hmm. It was cool. Man, a little tiki hut on it and stuff like that. It was nice. It was cool. Had a water catchment tank on it, temporary power. It was cool. Alright. I'm the whitest Mexican you ever saw. No, I think my buddy Omar was the whitest Mexican. He was Mexican, like, he looked Mexican and all that, but he was definitely a white boy inside. Alright. Government is the people behavior. 40-year mortgage is like a lifetime mortgage. A law can happen in 40 years. America has already fallen, and now Americans are waiting to be told. Okay, well, I guess I'll still show up tomorrow, huh? All right, Simon, will 40-year conventional loans become the new norm, assuming rates and prices stay elevated? Um, I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, I don't know. Is that something that is really prevalent right now? I know that there is some 40-year loans that have been issued, some of the like the refinancing kind of things, after people were coming out of the moratoriums and stuff like that. So I know there was some 40-year loans that were issued, but is it going to actually become a norm? Like, I would really think about, like, I would really look. Okay, so we have to think about, most people don't realize that most mortgages are generated in the private debt market. Did you know that it doesn't really have anything to do with the United, like the government? The government doesn't create the mortgages that most mortgages are created from. Like, they're created from private money. Those mortgages are created with a certain criteria with them that they can, so that they can sell them. Right. So, like a rich dude, right, is using his money to create mortgages that he can then sell. Right? He doesn't want the mortgage. He doesn't want to be paid back. He just wants to create the debt instrument and then sell that debt instrument off for a profit. And so when we think about that, there is more debt that is created in the private market for mortgages than there is inside of, like, say the traditional banking system. Now, granted, those mortgages do move in to the government entities or whatever like that, but still it's created within the private market. And that's important to kind of understand, because when you think about how it is that mortgages achieve the level of interest that they did, they happened like almost instantly. When the Fed says, hey, we're going to raise rates and we're going to start unwinding our balance sheet and all that, like, mortgages shot right up. They shot right up to, like, what was it, 7-8%. It was like they skyrocketed almost right away, and everybody panicked a little bit. And not a little bit, a lot, right? But that wasn't like what the Federal Reserve was doing, right? The Federal Reserve was going like, well, we raised interest rates a little bit, and we raised them a little bit more, and we raised them a little bit more, and we raised them a little bit more, and we raised them a little bit more. And it wasn't a little bit, it was fast, actually. But it was happening over time. Well, the mortgage rate shot up almost instantly, like within, like, I think it was within a few weeks, if I remember right. Right. So what happened there? Well, again, we have to think about, like, what's taken place within the market itself, not the government, but to realize that there is an actual market out there of people who buy and sell assets like mortgages, mortgage-backed securities. So if there is investors out there who buy and sell mortgage-backed securities, and all of a sudden you have mortgage-backed securities that are just falling like crazy because the interest rates are rising, and the government's going to get out of these mortgage-backed securities. They're going to dump them, essentially, right? This is the perception of the market, and it's the truth. They're going to unwind their balance sheet, so the mortgages are coming off the balance sheet. So as this happens, all of a sudden the investors are like, whoa, what the hell, right? And so they're going to, like, back up and think about it for just a second as they watch what happens with these bonds, with these particular bonds, because a mortgage-backed security is a bond, right? It's another way of looking at it. So they're going to look at these mortgage bonds, and they're going to say, whoa, what's going on with this? And they're watching, watching, watching. And they're like, damn, look at that price and look at the yield. That's it. I'm in. Bang, right here. That's my ticket. That's where I'm like, I don't care. You guys can wait. I'm buying. And this is where the market starts finding the floor for those bond prices, for those mortgage-backed security prices. Bond prices, prices come down, yields go up. So when the bond prices found the floor, because that's where the investor said, hey, man, that's my price and that yield that it's paying, I'm in. This is it. This is the ticket, right? Again, think about it in that fashion, away from the Federal Reserve, because that is the reason why you're not seeing the the whole bond or the whole mortgage yields rising up to 15%, like everybody said that they were going to do, or 10%, or even higher than they are now. The reason why they didn't go up any higher is because literally there's a market out there that says, that's it, man, that is my price. I'm in. All right. And once they did that, that's as high as the yields were going to go. Right. Now, could they go higher? Sure, they could go higher. If the Federal Reserve was to raise interest rates and you start seeing more pressure put onto the bond market and you see those prices fall and the yields begin to rise, yeah, I could see where the mortgage market could find higher yields or find higher prices or higher interest rates. Absolutely. But considering the market conditions right now and what it is that the bond investors are feeling about the mortgage market, feeling about the Federal Reserve, and feeling about the future, mortgage rates where they are right now is as high as they're going to get. That's it, right? So I don't know how many people missed it. Like, I remember I had an interview, and I don't want to say his name because he's a real good buddy of mine, but I was interviewing him on my channel, and he told that he says we are advising our clients to wait. When the interest rates and the bond yields or when the mortgage rates rise, the prices of houses will come down and that will give them their opportunity to get in. And I explained my theory, what I just said about the mortgages. I said this might occur instead. And he looked at me like, wow, I'd never thought of that. And you could see that it just almost he was starting to question his whole belief system at that. And I just backed away and I didn't say anything more after that. You know, it's easy when you don't have any skin in the game. I don't care. That's like, I care a lot. I care a lot about a lot of things, but I don't care about the outcome. You know that? I don't. Like, I've let go of the outcome. Like, whether or not I get it, I don't get it, it happens, it doesn't happen, whatever it is, man. It's just going to be that way. And it's difficult. See, this is the problem I had, is that I recognized a long time ago that I had a huge ego. Like, huge ego. Everything had to be this particular way. If it didn't go down this way, it was upsetting my whole world, right? It's because I was all clogged up in this whole ego and the way that I thought that the world should be done. And if it didn't happen that way, I was hung up on the outcome. All right. I was just like, man, if it doesn't go down this way, my whole world is going to be disruptive. It was so important. I put all this importance on it. Learning to let that go has been one of the most difficult things in my entire life because of how locked in I was. And so letting go of outcome has probably been one of the most rewarding things in my life, because really it relieves a lot of stress, of anxiety, like about worry about the future. It lets go of the past. You don't stress about you forgive all the issues that you've ever had in your past, and you just live in the moment, right? See, that's it. Like, I was thinking, here, you guys want some weird philosophy stuff? Here, let's talk a little bit of philosophy, because I was up real early. Was it this morning, yesterday morning? I get up early and I drink coffee and my mind starts to really spin. I saw a super chat there. I won't let you by. I'll go back and check it out. But here's something that I was just thinking about, and let me try and roll this around for you and give you something to think about. Now, when it comes to putting energies together, right? Something really interesting happens. It's not an addition. When you take one energy and you combine it with another one, you don't have an addition. What you have is a multiplication, because when you put these two energies together, a synergy happens, and then all of a sudden an exponential growth can start coming from it, and it starts multiplying, right? So it's more of a multiplication when you bring two energies together than it is an addition. So when we think about it as a multiplication of when you have two energies that come together, it doesn't matter what it is, everything carries energy, right? My constitution here carries energy, this apple carries energy, right? The video that I'm putting together right now, sharing with you what you are feeling, everything has energy to it, right? And with this energy, there's positive and negative. So now let's think about it from this point of view, because it comes down to like a mathematical equation. Everything has an algorithm to it. Now, we think about the mathematical equation of it, we got positive and negative. Okay, so when you take two positives and you times them together, you end up with a positive number. You take a positive and negative and you times them together and you end up with a negative. Now, if you take a negative number and you times it by a negative number, you end up with a positive. which is one of the weirdest things to think about. And it was just the strangest concept for most people to try and wrap their head around, that a negative number times a negative number will create a positive number. -5 times -5 will equal 25. The same as 5 times 5 is the same, right? So now when we think about negative energy and a negative energy, and like, how could this possibly create like a positive outcome? But then you really think about it, anytime you ever have two negative energies come together, there's a clashing. But what's happened as soon as the clashing happens? It's a peaceful event. War, right? It's a peaceful event. As soon as the war is over, like the clashing of energies, right? The two negatives come together, you have a peaceful outcome, positive, right? And now, if you think about it on every sense, it doesn't even really have to be like a positive, negative thing, like a good or bad, because really that comes down to the meaning that you're giving it. So the meaning that you're giving it is really the energy that it now carries. So like, I hate apples. Well, then that apple has a negative energy, but I love apples. Like, I mean, I literally love apples. They're my favorite fruit. So apples carry a really positive energy. But again, it's just all about the meaning that I have given it. You might give it a meaning that you hate it and it has a negative energy. I give it the meaning that it is positive, and because it's an awesome thing, right? So now, again, the energy that it is carrying comes down to the meaning that you have given it, which is really difficult to now wrap your head around, that everything in your life has a positive, negative, or a push and pull, or black and white, or up or down, or whatever, because it comes down to really the meaning. Is it a good apple or bad apple? It's not. It's just a neutral. That's really all it is. But because we give meaning to everything, it starts firing off on a positive or negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? Through everything that we ever do or say or believe or understand. So understanding that there is this positive negative aspect that is creating the positive negative results. If you have two positives coming together, then you know that there's going to be a positive result that comes from it. Think about two energies, two friends who get together, have a great time hanging out together, doing all the other stuff. There's always positive stuff that results from it because of these positive energies that are flowing around them, right? But if you take a positive person and you put a negative person in with it, no matter how hard that negative person or the positive person is trying to deal with the negative person, you're probably going to end up with a negative outcome because these two just don't jive together. But again, if you have two negatives that come together, you may find that the meaning that you had put into it was negative, but ultimately the result is going to be positive. Think about work. Work is a negative, right? Like, who wants to work and sweat their ass off? And some people do like to work. Well, again, it's the meaning that you give it. But if you have a lot of work towards something that needs to be done, right? Changing the oil is a negative, it needs to be changed. The work is a negative, it needs to be changed, but the result is a positive and a functioning machine. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative the entire time. So go through life understanding that this is what's occurring and creating the positive outcomes. Because everything is energy and everything is magnified and multiplied when these energies come together. So you see people out there who's just like, man, how come that jerk over there always seems to be a winner? Right? It's because he figured out a way to make positive outcomes take place, no matter what it is. And again, it all goes down to the meaning that you're giving it, because this apple right here may carry negative energy depending on whether or not you like or don't like apples. Right? Everything is illusion. You are an eternal spiritual being, have a temporary human experience, right? Isn't that how Aaron Doughty says it? And that's really the truth of it all. And so when it comes down to everything that you're looking at and feeling and behaving with, depending on the energy and feelings that you are carrying and the meaning that you are giving something, this terrible apple, I hate it, or this beautiful apple, I love it, the meaning that you are giving it is the positive or negative that you are experiencing. Bang. Yeah. All right, man, I can hardly read this. What are some book recommendations you have? You know, I got made fun of for this one because I don't really read a whole lot of books. All right, so I've only read 2 books on economics. Everything else that I've learned about economics, I've read through speeches and documents and Federal Reserve papers and all kinds of stuff. So most of what I've learned through economics is through the Federal Reserve itself and their working papers and their speeches, and listening to a lot of people on YouTube. I read The Creature from Jekyll Island, right? J. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, awesome book, major eye-opener to the Federal Reserve. And then I also read Cantillon's essay on economic theory. Now, if you haven't read Cantillon's essay on economic theory, there is a link to this book down in the description, an Amazon affiliate link. If you go and you click on that link and you buy the book, I will get a little commission for you purchasing this book off of Amazon by following that link. You do not have to purchase the book from Amazon. It is for free at the Mises Institute. So if you are looking for this book right here, the essay on economic theory, Cantillon's essay on economic theory, again, if you just type it in here, I don't know if you can see it, too dark in here. Anyway, Cantillon, how does it spell? Cantillon. Cantillon theory or essay on economic theory. The Mises Institute has it for free. Now, with that being said, if you do go click on that Amazon affiliate link, anything that you put in your cart, even if it's not this book, just put anything you want in the cart and make that purchase. I will also get a commission on that. So somebody went and bought like I can see what's being purchased. I don't know who purchases them, but I can see what's being purchased. And like, there's some pretty big purchases, $700, purchases and stuff like that, that shows some pretty good commission. So go and buy whatever you want. Just follow that affiliate link, and anything you put in the cart for the next 24 hours, I will get a commission for, so long as you make that purchase within the next 30 days. So again, you can support the Uneducated Economist simply by doing the things that you would normally do on Amazon. Just follow that link first. Sign up for all your memberships, all your subscriptions, all that other stuff that you do through Amazon. Follow the link first before you do it, and I will get commission on all that stuff. All right. And those are the only two books I've ever read, by the way, on economics anyhow. I've tried going through Adam Smith's Wealth of Nation. It's too much. Like, after you go through about 20 pages of corn commodity pricing, it's just like, good Lord. But I can see where it's a really, really, really good book. I would love to get through it someday. I don't know. Maybe I will. I have a very difficult time reading, although I've gotten so much better at it over the last few years. So I feel like maybe I could do a lot more reading. I'm listening right now to Ben Bernanke's book that he wrote in 2022, because it's talking about the current monetary policy. And I know a lot of people don't give him any credit. I think that dude I think he played the credible threat theory like a fine violin, man. I mean, it was like, and so I really want to learn a little bit more about what it is that he was thinking about it, because he was really kind of letting it loose in that book. So I hope that helps. Gosh, look at all these comments. Where are we at? 111 people with 156 likes. Right on. You guys are awesome. All right. Increase back down here to the bottom. Man, I can hardly see. Okay, all right. I thought that the peasant wears shabby clothes. I realized I am a peasant. Oh. All right. I do a lot of Reddit reading. Everybody finds their place. Like, everybody, like, I have a few friends who are like, "Oh man, I'm all over Reddit. I'm surprised you're not doing Reddit. Reddit's the place to be," or Twitter, or X, or whatever, And like, everybody has these places like they go to, and like, for me, it's been YouTube. Like, I just find everything happening on YouTube. I don't know. Like, everybody finds their spot. Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations was really, really hard. I don't even remember half of it. Yeah, and that's the problem that I was facing with it too. See, like, Cantillon's essay is awesome, because really it's fairly short. It's not that hard to read. It's a little bit on the boring side in some places, but really, like, a few of the chapters, like the chapters on the increase and decrease of money to the state, are really intriguing. Like, I mean, I enjoyed reading them. I'm like, man, this stuff is good. It talks all about like how the money flows through the state and what happens with it. And it's just like, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, fun book to read. Finish Ben Bernanke's book and give us a rundown. We need to know, and you're our interpreter. Yeah, I think I might. Like, it's kind of long. I think it was like, God, I want to say it was, I don't know, 8 or 12 hours or something. It was like a really fairly long book. Um, because I don't know how long a book should be, but anyway, it seemed to me I was just like, good Lord, that's a lot. But there was some parts in there that are just so like absolute telling, especially like he gets into the credible threat theory of things and how it guides markets. And I wish everybody knew about the credible threat theory, right? And I mean, of course, he calls it forward guidance, right? He doesn't call it credible threats; he calls it forward guidance. But it's so hard to try and talk like economics with people when they don't understand the credible threat theory, because when you try to even give them a little glimpse of it, they can't engage in conversation, for one, because they have a hard time even understanding it, and then they just go and blame Biden anyway. So it's like, and I'm like, okay, there's no point in even really talking about monetary policy with most people if they don't understand how the forward guidance credible threat theory works, right? If they don't understand flexible average inflation targeting, it makes it difficult to have conversations with people about like what's going on. They ask me, what's going to happen with the Fed funds rate? And I was just like, well, okay, so since they're going for flexible average inflation rate targeting, they're like, you mean the 2% target? No, I don't. It's just like, uh, man, I can't hardly see anymore. All right. I find it all on YouTube. I find a lot, yeah. This book basically explains the background of what this channel is saying, what's happening now. Yeah, Cantillon's like, I've really taken on Cantillon's theory pretty good, but really, like, Cantillon had no clue about digital currencies, right? Never really understood the idea of what that could be like. Certainly didn't like take on the idea of like a central banking fiat currency, world reserve currency. Like, I don't think he ever thought that something like that could ever exist. This was back in the day with gold and silver. So when I look at it, I think about the economic forces that he was talking about, all right? How the money flowed through the system, how inflation is found through the increase in consumption. These are the type of things that I find very interesting through his book, is those underlying economic forces. When you're reading through it, you're like, man, I kind of recognize a lot of this stuff happening today. Take note of that. When you recognize it in the book, those are the underlying economic forces. Like, the stuff that he's talking about, horses and wagons, I mean, we got airplanes and cell phones and stuff. Like, that doesn't relate, right? But there is stuff in there that does, right? And that's where I find it really, really fun and important. How can you be so sure how money works if you aren't in 1%? Oh, okay. Let me think about that for just a second. Okay. Um, so by understanding it, does that mean, like, here we go. A professional baseball player has to know the game better than anybody else in the world in order to get paid to play the game. They have to be good at it and they have to know it. So you have to be a professional ball player to know it as well as they do to get paid like they do. They make millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. But does that mean that the guy who's sitting up there doing the announcement knows less about baseball than the guy down there playing the game? Just asking. Uh, I mean, I don't mean to answer a question with a question, but I think that kind of, sums it up, right? Oh man, I can hardly see anymore. Okay, damn, he got stuck. I didn't get stuck. I just had to think about it for a second. All right. With gold and oil, it will probably something coincide important. I can't read anymore, guys. I'm sorry. How debt is the most important thing. True fiat. All right. George Orwell more prophetic than Nostradamus? Oh yeah, by far. Human nature makes sense when you understand the here we go. Neuroplasticity or brain plasticity, the ability of neural networks in the brain to change through growth and reorganization. But the guy ain't playing the game, right? But does that mean he knows less about the game? Does he know less about everything that he is describing, the plays, the abilities, the styles, the strategies, the history? Is there a possibility that the guy up there in that booth, the announcer, could have more baseball knowledge than the players who are actually playing the game? Is it possible? Sure. Absolutely it is. Right? In fact, it's probably more likely. Can you turn on the other light on the visor? I don't know. I don't think there is. That's the only light there is the one in the center. So, I mean, I can lean back a little bit. I guess get in that one spot right there, but I can't see. I can't see the damn words. 120 volt doesn't equal 240 volt. What is that? I'm not sure what that is. Okay. I drove to the store. You're still up. Yeah. Yeah, let's see here. What time is it? Hour 36. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I guess we just got, it's 160 likes. I don't know. I just got stuck out here. Simon, could you read HR 8421 and 5 your thoughts on the future episodes? Would love to hear what you think about the proposed bill. Let's see. I disagree, but I get what you're trying to understand the game. No, I'm not trying to say that I'm as good as that. What I'm trying to say is that I've hung out with people, right, who have not only acquired and achieved a level of success that is what I think a lot of people would be like, the 1%. I've hung out with these people, right? I mean, like literally hung out with them. They ask me my opinion. Like, what is going on with lumber? What do you think is happening with this? Right? Literally ask me my opinion. Whether or not they give me any kind of, consideration beyond what it is that they already know about stuff, when I talk about lumber, they listen. They literally listen to what I have to say about it. I give them my views. I usually include the macroeconomic story with it. They have a tendency to kind of question themselves for a second as they think about what it is that they believe, realizing, knowing that I know my shit when it comes to lumber, right? So I've been in those circles, right? I can right now pick up my phone and I can text Mark Moss. I can text Ken McElroy, George Gammon, like Jason Hartman. Like I know all these dudes. I've communicated with them in the past, right? I'm on my way up. I'm heading in that direction. In order to play the game, in order to do that, you have to know how to play the game, right? So I've surrounded myself with the people who do it. I'm picking up the game. I'm heading in that direction. I'm proving myself time and time again. I'm pretty sure I know what it is that I'm talking about because I keep hearing how it is that the monetary policy that people are explaining out there is only working through the propagandized information and being able to recognize both the communications clearly, right? Which is something that not a lot of other people are doing, including a lot of the people that are on my contacts list. Yeah, I think I got it going on. I think I figured it out way better than a lot of these other people. Do they understand a lot of the political issues that are happening out there better than me? Hell yeah, they do. I mean, absolutely they do. I'm okay. I'm watching about how the deep state tried to kill Trump, right? And I'm not watching this video. I'm not going to. I'm not, right? But this video, hundreds of thousands of views inside of a few hours. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to go and put a bunch of propagandized information together. Like, I've dived down the New World Order. I've done all that kind of research. It is depressing as hell, and I guarantee you, you will gain nothing from it. It will not advance your life. You will not, be making more appropriate decisions for yourself based on the information that you get from it. It will scare the daylights out of you. You will become more of the prepper for a zombie apocalypse than anything, right? I mean, go for it. It's great. It's quite entertaining. I mean, it'll definitely occupy your thoughts, right? So, I mean, go for it in that sense. But I don't see any benefit from any of that information whatsoever. Understanding how the neutral interest rate has risen slightly since the pandemic, and how it is that that neutral interest rate is the real issue for the Federal Reserve. And if that neutral interest rate doesn't rise over time, that they're going to have a problem trying to stimulate the economy next time we run into the lower bound of zero. I mean, that to me is so much more important. Like, that to me is like the most important thing everybody should be watching. It's like, damn, what's happening with these neutral interest rates? I mean, do you think they're going to go up or down? I mean, it goes off inflation expectations. Like, nobody thinks like that. Nobody talks like that. Everybody is just like, hyperinflation going to destroy the world. And the Federal Reserve's like, yep, keep thinking that, buddy. Keep thinking that, right? Because that's saving the day. We're raising the neutral interest rate. It's hard, right? John Williams says it hasn't done much, right? It's gone from 2.5 to 2.8. I don't know. Like, everybody gives meaning to everything they want, right? Just like what we were talking about. Good or bad. Apple, is the apple good or bad? It's nothing. It's just the meaning that you give it. Politics is useless in the real life. I kind of agree. I mean, I really do. I agree. I think it's pretty useless in the real life. I don't know where it is that occupying my time and energy and thoughts and the research into politics benefits me. I just don't see it. I do see it when it comes to monetary policy. I've conducted myself in a much more appropriate fashion. I have a much clearer and better belief or understanding of my own beliefs when it comes to the interest rates and the interest rate setting policies. Everybody else is like, stuck at the whims of some talking head on the TV. I don't do it like that. Alrighty, guys, it's getting late. I can hardly see. We're an hour and 42 minutes into this. We were only supposed to do like an hour-long live stream, but you guys are awesome. And with 113 people watching and 168 likes, I just had to stick it out here with you guys because you're always so much fun, man. All right, but you don't have. Wow, almost there. Simon, once you get there, they will show you where is the broom so you can get down to cleaning to make you McDonald. What in the world? That is one of the weirdest comments I've seen. Okay. Only if you have a business that uses lots of plywood. I love plywood. It is ultimate building material. Dude, of course storing plywood is fantastic investment. Politics is useful if investing is part of your life. Certainly not the only thing to watch, but it is important. Jay Luther, I agree and disagree with that because actually you're absolutely right with it. If you are using politics to invest, then the meaning that you have given into it and the position that you have taken, especially when it comes to your investments, will be based on the political outcomes, right? See, you have invested with the political outcome in mind, and if this political event takes place, then you will have gained your investment profit, right? So you are looking for political outcomes to take place in order to invest into. So therefore, you are using politics for your investment. I don't use politics for my investments, so therefore the political environment doesn't impact my investments. Now, you might think differently of that because of the meaning that you have put into your investments, and then you would have all the reasonings and discussions and reasonings why you have given it that meaning. I haven't, right? My meanings and what I have given into it don't mean the same thing as what you have done. And so therefore I don't look at it from a political view. What happens in politics is inconsequential to my investments, right? Because I'm invested in a way that if politics are an issue, I'm only limited to certain amounts of issues that are going to take place. I have positioned myself outside of the political arena because of that reason. So therefore, whatever happens with that has a very small impact on my life, and therefore I just exclude it all the way out. I don't have to have politics even as a concern. So this is why it's like when somebody says you have to have politics in your life, no, you don't. You have to have politics in your life because you have conditioned yourself to have politics in your life. I did the exact opposite. I positioned myself not to have politics in my life, right? And it's difficult for somebody who is on the opposite side to say, how can you do that? Because everything that you have done has given it that meaning, right? And everything that I have done has given it a different meaning. And so this is how we can have these two different ideas taking place at the same time, where politics interferes with your, or it impacts your investments, and politics doesn't impact my investments, right? I mean, the dollar amounts might change, but the position that I have taken is regardless of politics. All right. If he's smarter than me, I hate him, and if he's dumber than me, I despise him. Stock market guy. Huh. All right. I have a 10 kW Perkins power diesel Jenny, just in case a zombie apocalypse or the power goes out, or just want to flip the switch off, the power is on. Yeah. Or flip the switch on the power company. Yeah. Like everybody has their position that they have taken for that event, right? Now, me personally, like I think my wife is got the greatest skill for a zombie apocalypse. She can can food. Like she can can anything. You can bring her a lot. Like you can bring her 100 pounds of anything, and she will not bat an eye at that. She will be like, let's get it going. And she will have all that packet canned up by the end of the day and be sitting there watching Little House on the Prairie by the end of the evening. That's my wife. She will knock that shit out. And she won't even, like, it wouldn't even phase her. You could probably bring her 200 pounds of fish. It would be a lot. She would be like, you're helping, right? But it wouldn't be overwhelming to her. She would be like, that's a lot of work. We're going to have a lot to do here. But she would do it. She would knock it out and not even have a problem with it. That is a hell of a skill, right? And to be able to do that without power, like to be able to have that skill with being able to do it, like say over a wood fire heat or something of that, you have to get those canners up to a particular temperature, and you have to maintain that for a while, for a certain amount of time. If you can have that skill to be able to can food without electricity, I think that by far is the greatest skill that you could have. Because you can go and shoot a deer or something like that, but if you can't preserve that deer, then what good is it? Right? It's good for one meal. You kill this entire animal to get a couple of meals out of it. That's it. But if you can package that stuff up, now that deer will last you years, right? Or could possibly. All right. Oh gosh. All right. God. Thanks for typing this. See, all up in capitals. I can actually read that. I only watch liberal politics. Ugh. So I know how much and where to invest, and from what investment I must stay away from. Trump stopped building the wall in Mexico and moved to Taiwan. Do the truffle shuffle. Do it. All right, no time to waste. Work set you free. Work sets you free. I think that was written on the gate of camp or something. Little House. What does that say? Doubt ball episode? Fancy clickbait? Yeah. No, you think I'm joking? No, my wife, she went and bought that set, man. She loves Little House on the Prairie. She's been watching it. Like we don't have cable. It's funny. I went and called the cable people, right? Because we just finally, like, my house is out here in the boonies, so we finally got like the fiber optics run through, and they're like, "Hey, we're providing, high-speed internet for everybody out here." I'm like, "Great, hey, hook me up." They came out, they ran a conduit, they got it to right here, and then they canceled my deal. I'm like, "What's up, guys?" What do you do that for? So anyway, I'm this close to getting internet. I mean, like I can see they got the conduit busted out right there, so I know they can run the cable through it now. If they could only get it to me, man, I am like so close to having internet at the house. It's so weird. Alright, moving on. UE, what do you think about Japan cashing in on US debt we owe them after hearing the Fed buying foreign debt? I don't think the Fed has been buying foreign debt. Not at the level of, like, say a quantitative easing and then buying like foreign debt assets and putting it on their balance sheet. Now, whether or not they're like funding banks to buy foreign debt to put on the to put on the balance on their balance sheet, like on the big banks' balance sheets, that might be a different story. But as far as like Japan, so, like, I don't look at nations selling off their treasuries as a bad deal, like they're trying to get out of it. In my opinion, they're more trying to get a hold of the cash, right? They're trying to get a hold of the cash in order to pay off their debts, or to, strengthen their own currency, to buy their own currency back. Like they might be buying the yen with the cash. Who knows, right? There's a lot of different reasons on what it is that they are doing with that cash once they have sold the treasuries, but I do not feel that they are trying to get out of it to try and get out of it, like just because they want to dump it for no reason, like, or for a reason other than wanting the cash or readjustment of balance sheets, or buying, getting the cash to buy their own, or to pay off their own debt, buy their own currency, whatever. Like there's reasonings for it. And it's probably right there. It's probably buying their own yen. You know, I can't see, guys. All right. What does this say? You had putts on it, Luther. All right, let's cruise down here. Fed issues debt through one door and buys it back through another. The Fed doesn't issue debt. They issue out liabilities called Federal Reserve. They're either reserves or Federal Reserve notes, right? Bank reserves or Federal Reserve notes, but they don't issue out debt. Now, you can kind of look at like the Federal Reserve note as a debt, right? Because a note is a debt, but it's the liability of the Federal Reserve. It's the cash that we use. It's our asset, right? So, yeah, they issue out debt in the form of currency, but, they're buying US Treasuries. They can buy gold. Like they could just buy gold. They don't have to buy debt. They could buy gold and just put that on there and put the Federal Reserve note liability out there. I'm losing it, guys. I can't see. Stretching. I'm trying really hard. What are your thoughts on UBI versus other contemporary wealth distribution subsidies such as food stamps, etc.? Clear Glass Studios, that's a great question. I think UBI is a terrible idea. I think there's probably no faster way to separate the rich from the poor than to pour new money directly into the system on a consistent basis, such as UBI. UBI stands for Universal Basic Income, right? Universal meaning that everybody gets it. If it's not everybody getting it, then it's not universal. So being universal, the rich all the way down to the poorest person gets this universal basic income. And that right there will have the poor people probably blowing it, because most of the time you're going to find that it's not like handing money to somebody who has not earned it generally will not be wise with that money. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case for everybody, but generally speaking, that's probably going to be the case. Rich people who don't need the money will do the smart thing with it, and they will most likely save and invest that money, right? So they will separate themselves from the poor people who won't be wise with the money, and that's generally what new money does when it is poured into the system. So UBI will separate the rich from the poor, even if the poor people were to use it on their basic needs, and buy things of, like, necessity. Again, that will benefit the corporations who are owned by the rich, who own the stock in those corporations. And again, all that money will eventually find its way up into the pockets of the rich. UBI is a terrible idea for that. So now we go and think about it from a different direction. Well, maybe we won't give it to the rich. Maybe it'll only go to the poor. Maybe it'll only go to a certain select group of people. Well, now what you have is not universal basic income, but what you have done is you have drawn a circle around a particular, you have drawn a circle around a group and given them a particular. That is segregation. Segregation basic income. That is what is really taking place. So now, if you have segregation basic income, you can take the money and you can flow it right down into the lower half, right? And then that money will find its way, or would be, let me say that again. If you bring it in through the bottom, it wouldn't be the idea of new money coming in at the top, trickling down. Instead, the new money would be injected right at the bottom. Here's the problem with this, okay? That new money coming in at the bottom that wasn't earned is going to increase consumption. When you increase consumption, because all of a sudden you now have, an extra $100 a month, you're going to go off and probably not do the right thing, but go off and spend that money, right? So it's going to increase consumption. When you increase consumption, what you are doing is you are increasing the prices. So all the price increases will have pretty much neutralized the UBI. See, you got UBI to help you live, right? To help pay for the necessities that you need. But since everybody got it and it added to the consumption, everybody started consuming at the same time, that's what drove prices up. That took away the efforts of the UBI. See, if the prices stayed low and you were given UBI, then it might be helpful to you. But since everybody got the UBI and it raised the consumption and everything went up in price, now your UBI doesn't put you anywhere at an advantage. You're right back where you were. Right? And in the meantime, the rich got richer because you went and bought all their products, which increased the stock prices and then boosted the corporations. So the rich will get rich no matter what. If you bring new money into the system, no matter what, the rich will get richer, and it'll separate the rich from the poor. So go for it, right? Go for it. I'm prepared. I'll deal with it. I'm in a position in which I would use that money to invest with, right? I don't know how many people would take the smart idea and say, okay, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that the UBI is first introduced, because this would be my real true opportunity before the prices move up and all that, to take that UBI and just try and separate myself from all these people who are getting the UBI by stashing it into an investment as much as I can and not use it to increase my consumption. Now, if that is what people did, then I feel that it would actually have like a narrowing of the gap, right? But that's not what people will do, right? They won't. They just, like, some people will, but most won't do it. They just won't. Like, even if you tell them, hey, we're going to give you this money, don't blow it on stupid stuff, right? Go and invest it. Buy things that are going to have a interest bearing to them. Go buy dividend paying stocks. Go find stuff that is going to be an investment. Learn how to do that. Now, here's your money. And they would go like, what are we supposed to do with it again? Right? And that's what's going to happen. It's just like, any real capitalist has to focus on preserving the value of spending money. Yeah. I'm wondering what is going on with my Nvidia stock. Why is it crashing? I never fell for that stuff. To me, like, I see all that hype and stuff like that. The more the more I don't hear about somebody talking about a stock, the more I am inclined to buy it. The more I hear people jacking it up and getting excited about it, the more I back away. The more I'm like, never mind, I'm out. Like they're like, no, it's gonna run up. I don't care if it triples. I don't care if it quadruple billions. I don't. It doesn't matter. I'm out, right? Because it's being hyped. It's like you have no real like idea of what has taken place within that if you have so many people who are just jumping into it just simply because it's on the news. I can't. I mean, I'm not. That's not what I'm doing here. Like I bought into Coinbase because I use Coinbase. I bought into Coinbase because I actually see that it's becoming like the custodial for a lot of companies, and it seems to me like they're the ones who are sticking it out, been there from the earliest days, and as all these other exchanges go up as fraudsters, Coinbase seems to stick around. Now, whether or not you can trust Coinbase, I don't know. They're a bank. They're a bank like all the rest of the banks. I don't know if you can trust them banks, but you know what? I have Bitcoin with them. I don't have all of it with them, but I have a bunch of with them, and I own their stock, and that stock has gone up 280%, dollar cost averaging in for a year on it. I think I nailed that one. I mean, like, dang, right? I wish I had put more to it, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just, figuring out investments too. But all my investments, every single one of them are up. All right. I mean, are they up a great deal? No. Some of them are. Coinbase is. The rest of them, they're okay. My dividend paying stock, Altria, that one's paid a lot. I just got paid another $57 in dividend, from those guys. And I love seeing that coming in every, 4 times a year. That's pretty cool. So, and to have done all that in like just inside of a few years, like I'm still trying to figure, like 5 years ago, I was broke, right? Oh shit. Did I lose my contact? Okay, we're back. Yeah, but like 5 years ago, I was broke. Like I didn't, 5, 6 years ago, didn't have anything going on, nothing at all. I had no car, I had no savings, I was in debt, it was all the bad stuff, right? I did all this in record time, man. Like, it's almost hard to believe that it actually happened. Like, it was so fast and so much stuff. Like, it was taking off in the interviews and the channels blowing up and the going off in the conference. And it's like, wow, what the world? Yeah. And I look back and I'm like, really, it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Nothing. Nothing. Had the family. That's what I had. That's all I really needed. All right. Oh, where am I? I can't see, guys. I'm going to have to call it quits. We're done. I can't see the thing anymore. So I really appreciate everybody hanging out with me for 2 hours here while we go through this live stream talking about, I don't even know what we were talking about anymore. I forget what the title of the damn video was. Oh, yeah, the foreign holding of debt. You know, it's weird to think what a default would look like. Like if you run into the debt ceiling and all of a sudden, yeah, we can't pay it, we can't do it, we got to default on some of these debts. Like, what would that look like? See, I would imagine what would happen. See, this is what I think would happen. Here, I'll leave it at this, give you something to kind of think about as we end the live stream. What would it be like if the United States government began to default on their US Treasuries, right, on the bonds? I think there's a couple of scenarios that can go down. One, they could just let it happen, which would be a terrible idea, and then the interest rates would skyrocket as people would become very concerned about whether or not they would be able to get paid back on their bonds or sell their bonds. So that I don't feel is going to be a very likely scenario. Oh, wait, did I miss a super? I'm sorry, guys. Did I miss a super chat? I should go back and check that out. Oh my God. Oh, where are they? I can do it like this. Cool. Let me go. Yeah, let me check out the super chats before I leave you guys too. But let's think about what that would look like, right? So if they did default on it, that would be a really bad deal. So they're most likely not going to just allow the bonds to default, right? What is probably going to end up happening is that they can do one of two things. Now, one of them is that they can pick and choose whose bonds default. They could say like, hey, the enemy of our state, like the Russia, you got some bonds, you're not getting paid. Who else? Iran, you got bonds, you're not getting paid. Right. And they can just pick and choose. And then it'd be like, okay, or they're going to be like, maybe some of you guys, you're all going to, like, some of you guys ain't going to get paid for some of this stuff. That again is just as bad as the first one. And if you start, even if it's the enemies of the United States who they are like, hey, we're not going to pay you, that will still send a message out to the friends of the United States that says, hey, man, if they could do it to them, they might do it to us. So again, I think that that's a bad deal. I don't think that'll work. Right. Now, the third option, and I think this is probably the most likely one in case of a new United States Treasury default, and that is that the Federal Reserve, who is sitting on billions in US Treasuries, can say, hey, you got a defaulting bond, give us the toxic asset and we'll give you one of our viable ones. So we'll swap toxic ones for good ones. And so any defaulting bonds out there, the Federal Reserve can absorb the toxic assets and hand out good ones until the Treasury, I guess, gets back on its feet again, so to speak, and the Federal Reserve would be paid back on those bonds, on those toxic assets. That, to me, is the most likely outcome, because that way, all the rest of the bonds out there in the market are still good, still function, still operate the same as they always did. And because the Federal Reserve is absorbing the toxic assets, they won't be concerned about theirs going toxic because they can just swap it out to the Federal Reserve for a viable one. And that's really how I feel like a toxic, or how a Treasury default would go down. All right, let's make sure I did all the super chats here, because I would hate to have missed a super chat. We had the Larry Bird one. Thank you so much for the... Let me go through them here. Wayne, thank you so much for the $5. Larry Bird, you had the $4.99. Thank you so much. S499, what do you think about... Oh, yeah, Say's Law. We talked about that one. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research. Thank you for the $4.99. Nathan got $5 in Canadian. What are some of the book recommendations? Yeah, we went over that with Cantillon essay and The Creature from Jekyll Island, J. Edward Griffin. All right, we got Randolph, $5. Hey, UE, do you ever pay attention to what the CME group says about the economy? No, I guess I don't. Here's something that I've come to realize. Again, it's a lot like the political issues that are out there. I have really come to the conclusion that everybody has their own economy. And when I hear when I hear an economist talking out there, they talk about the economy in a general sense. And I'm thinking, you don't know the position that I am in. You don't know what it is that I have going on in my life. And so when they talk about the economy in a general aspect, I don't look at it that way. Like, I don't see the economy in a general form like that. I look at what the monetary policy does to each and individual person as an individual. Us as individual then make up the economy. So you can't really generalize the economy, because whether or not you're in debt, whether or not you have a bunch of rental properties, whether or not you are, suffering consequences of alcoholism and a divorce, your economy is going to look different from everybody else's out there. And so I've kind of like I wouldn't say like lost it for listening to people talk about the economy in a general fashion. It's just that outside of monetary policy itself, I don't know what it is that would impact your economy more than that, right? And so understanding that, and then everything that is related to that monetary policy, because that is the most impactful thing to our lives. Like a lot of, I mean, unless you have conditioned your life to be, one that has impact because of the importance that you have given it for other reasons, right? But when the Federal Reserve does adjustments to their monetary policy, it does impact every single person's life. 12 voting members have more impact to the lives of people around the world than any other 12 people. They are the most influential people in everybody's lives. Like everything is backed by the dollar. Anything that happens to monetary policy then travels into anything that is being backed by the dollar. This is the entire globe. Right? So again, like, I don't think I listen to anybody else out there outside of the Federal Open Market Committee, their monetary speeches that they're talking about, and the propagandized information that I can try and find to filter through that is misinterpreting what it is that the monetary policy is doing. Like, that is my focus right now. I don't follow into environmental concerns about what's going on with the logging industry here in the United States and the forest stuff. Like, there is some major stuff that is happening right now that is making the forest industry just absolutely in devastation here in Oregon. I don't follow the politics of it, right? I know what's taking place. I see what's happening within the logging industry. I see what's happening within the lumber industry. I see it happening up in the British Columbia area. Again, I don't get into the politics of anything. I just stand back and I say, okay, well, your log prices are going to go up, and that's going to have an impact on lumber prices. It's going to have an impact on production. It's going to have an impact in those kind of ways. But as far as the reasonings and causes and defenses and trying to prevent it or anything like that, I'm not into it. I just observe the situation and move on. Um, anyway, 49 from Larry Bird. Thank you so much. I don't listen to the Congressional Budget Committee. I don't listen to like the President's Economic Advisor. I don't listen to any of that stuff. Like, remember Kudlow? Remember that dude? Like, God, he was so hard to listen to. I mean, some of the things that he was putting out and saying, especially like right there as COVID was kicking in, I was like, dude, you might want to stop talking right now because you are really going to have to, like, go back and explain yourself. You remember it was like, I think it was like literally like, I don't know, maybe about 48 hours before like COVID cases were breaking out here in the United States. He was like, oh, I'm not going to say it's contained, but it's contained. It's contained. We got it contained. It's contained. And then like 48 hours, it was just like cases popping up everywhere. This is the type of stuff that the administration does. This is not just the administration. This is the type of stuff that all those people do. I don't know why I would listen to it. Like, I mean, to me, it's not useful. All right? It's just not useful. All right, I'm tired. I have a okay. I'm tired. What else was there? I think we got it all. I'm gonna let you guys go now because I can't even think of anything else to say. But let me see. I can hardly see. We got 100. What is that? 106? Okay, 106 people watching with 185 likes. That is so awesome. $29.09 in super chats because you guys are always so generous with the super chats and keeping me out here and keeping the live stream going. We did it for 2 hours this time. We were only going to go for an hour, but that's pretty usual once we get rolling on these things. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate everything you do for the channel. Can't thank you enough. Come back tomorrow if you're a member to the live stream or a member to the channel. We're going to do the Getting Closer speech given by Christopher Waller, talking about where he feels that interest rates should be heading here in the next few months. And given his opinion, he is a voting member of the FOMC. So by reading that speech, we'll get a little bit better understanding of what at least one of the members of the FOMC is thinking. If not, maybe several of them are. And by doing that, we can internalize this information to better suit ourselves, and then we're not like thinking that there's going to be 100%, 100% guarantee of rate cuts coming in September, like a lot of other people are thinking. Like, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that there is no guarantee, right? Okay. Uneducated economist. You guys love me.